Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel, and this is a special short blog on the Biden announcement of stepping down as a candidate for the next U.S. election. And the reason I'm doing this is because I made a prediction back in January of 2021 based on this chart right here, the Biden inauguration chart, that this presidency would not end up seeing its way through, and that some surprising or shocking event would end it, and that ultimately Kamala Harris would have to take over, and in this case as the candidate actually. So it was very surprising. So what's really interesting, I just wanted to go over that again. And unfortunately, I did a blog on this, a video blog on the YouTube channel 3.5 years ago in January 2021, but it's no longer in storage. They drop off the blogs about after 2 years or so. I did try to actually find it so that I could maybe paste a link to it, but so I just really want to go over this because it's just amazing, you guys. I mean, I really want people to see who are into astrology how this worked and what happened here. So here is the Biden inauguration chart. He was sworn in about 12 minutes before noon, 11:48 a.m. on January 20th, 2021. And when I saw this chart, I have a rule of three. And if I see something 3 times in a chart, I'm very sure that, there's something that's going to happen that relates to the energies of those, those 3 that are, similar energies. And so what I saw in this chart is like right here, Mars was conjunct Uranus at 7 degrees Taurus, almost exact to the minute. It was literally 5 minutes of orb off only, and it was rising in the 12th house, right? So right away I was like, whoa, there is going to be a shocking event in this presidency. Mars Uranus is all about shocking events, things that just come out of the blue, and you're just like, wow, what just happened? And it's like, it's the things that real natural disasters, etc. At the time, I said, there's a possibility he could lose his life in office, like either, an assassination attempt or a sudden heart attack, something where he, suddenly is just gone from us. So, and when a planet is on the ascendant in a chart, it is plugged into that event or that person. This is something like there's no doubt that Mars, Pluto, and Mars Uranus energy was going to be a big part of his administration, and like just shocking, like something very shocking coming out of it. And you could look at the last 3.5 years and say, yeah, there was shocking events, but this to me on the inauguration meant that this presidency, this term, was not going to end the normal way. And so then I said, as rules of 3, then look at the moon right above it, also rising, right? And in Aries at the critical 29th degree and void of course. So once again, void of course moon, I know right there, this is not going to be a normal presidency. This is not going to be a normal term. And at that critical degree too, very much involved in like the changing dynamics of the United States political situation over the last 10-15 years, really, and really since when Pluto initially went into Capricorn, and really through what ended up happening during Biden's administration was the United States also had its Pluto return. So it just literally I just was like, okay, once again, the void of course moon, we can't expect things to go as we would want them to. And once again, rising, so it's very plugged in to the chart. and also all in the 12th house. And the 12th house is a sign of like a fall from power or weakness too. It's like, you know, when you can become powerless, when you can become isolated, when you can become alone. Notice that Chiron is in that house too. And what is the moon coming off of? A conjunction to Eris, the representation of chaos, quick, chaotic change. So right here, you know, just an amazing amount of stuff that made me feel right away, okay, big thing. But the last thing that I saw too was going back to an old technique somewhat, and the sun represents the president in these charts himself. You can see it's at the top of the chart, which, you know, is natural because it was midday. Usually they do the inauguration. It's supposed to align for right approximately 12 o'clock. And that was one of the funny things about that. If you go back to articles at the time, they're like, oh, Joe Biden beat the clock. Mars Uranus again, moving faster than the flow of what the time would have been, normally 12 o'clock, although that wouldn't have changed this chart too much, you know. So anyway, here's what I see. The sun at the top of the chart, and look what it's in between. Saturn and Pluto, right? Which are coming off the separation of the giant conjunction it did in January of 2020 when we had the COVID come in, and the government really had to take authority and shut basically most of society down. But what this position means when the sun is between two what we call malefic planets, two planets that are going to bring in tough times, Saturn and Uranus, like they're going to make us accountable for like what's gone on, and you know the weaknesses and the structures and forms that we have and the reformations that need to be made. So when a planet's between two planets that are like that, it's called besieged. So Joe Biden himself, his presidency was besieged. So here we go. We wind all the way back to a week or so ago, which I talked about very extensively in my blog 2 weeks ago, July 15th, a couple Mondays ago. Mars-Uranus conjunction again, right? The next Mars-Uranus conjunction, and where is it still? Uranus is a slow-moving planet, so it's at about 7 degrees Taurus back in January 2021. Here, 3.5 years later, it's getting close to the end of Taurus, but it's still in Taurus. So where's the conjunction again? In Taurus. On the week that not only did Biden announce that he was going to step down, but also the week that the other candidate, ex-President Trump, almost had his head blown off. Literally almost to the day that happened. Almost to the day. Trump's assassination attempt happened on the Mars-Uranus conjunction. It was like literally a day or two before it, right? So you can see how powerful and explosive with upsetting events. But my big point here is, guys, what happened? When did Joe Biden finally decide to step down? When this happened. From the inauguration chart. And it happened again, the conjunction 3.5 years later in the same sign. Note too, here set for Washington, D.C., this conjunction is at the top of the chart. So surprising news going to come right out of Washington, D.C., right? And to top a little bit down, the other thing I wanted to remember, and I did mention, the U.S. also went through its Pluto return during this whole period of time, you know? So this is like pretty interesting. And one of the interesting things here too is when Biden actually did make the announcement, here it is here, Biden made the announcement 1:46 p.m. last Sunday on X. The Mars had just gone into Gemini. So he makes an announcement. Once again, I talked about in my blog, when Mars went into Gemini, that's when we really, you know, make an announcement. He came out of his entrenched, detrimental Mars position of Taurus, where he was stuck, goes into Gemini and realizes, oh, yeah, You know, this is the truth, and I am going to have to give up this presidency. So very, very interesting there. And one of the things I wanted to show here too, if you go back to last month, and it's still on my website, the summer solstice blog I did for Washington, D.C. Remember, I said, what's the ruler of that chart? We got Scorpio rising, so Mars is the ruler, and it's conjunct the descendant, very, very strong there, closing in on the conjunction to Uranus, right? So once again, I had said during that, like, there's something very surprising. The country is going to get some very intense emotional event that's going to occur, and it's likely having to do either with our enemies and allies, or literally with the country being torn apart into two conflicting sides of the Republicans and Democrats. So we got that event here too. Very, very interesting. And then, you know, the one other thing I wanted to mention too, we go over here, the day that Biden made the announcement was what? It was the full moon day, you know, so here's the full moon too. So, you know, I talked about that too, but at the critical, okay, yeah, no, actually this is not the full moon, but anyway, you can see the full moon was coming in, and it's going to be at the 30th degree of Capricorn. So this is it. This is that big change of like the graduation point of having to move forward of something. And here's Capricorn, which represents the government, hierarchical structure, society. It hits that 30th degree, hits the conjunction to Pluto, right? And that shows us the depth of the issues going on with Biden and then that issue. And then all of a sudden, here it goes and squares the Uranus and Mars, and that feeds right back into it too. And here we go, all these things taken together, the perfect storm. So my point is, you can just trace this right back from my original prediction 3.5 years ago that this presidency was going to end. And I looked at Kamala Harris's chart back then, and I haven't done that this time around yet, but I remember being stunned at how powerful Kamala Harris's chart was, and my gut's just saying, this woman is meant to be the president someday. And not only is she going to be president, but she's going to be a very key figure in the United States history. So I think we're starting to see all that unfold, and maybe I need to look at her chart again and get back to why I thought that at the time. But I do remember clearly looking at that just when I was doing this blog 3.5 years ago, that Kamala Harris was destined to be a very powerful figure in the history of the United States, and it looked like she was going to be president for sure at some point. You know, so not surprising, but amazing how these things played out here. And the timing came right there. And then we also had all those other triggers going on at the same time. Biden stepping out under that full moon at that critical degree when Mars chipped into Gemini and got out of detriment. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to notice. Also notice right then was when Mars trined Pluto, which was like, okay, the energy and the power structure has broken. It built up to a break point, and now it's flowing out, and there's complete transformation. Biden has purged himself out of the picture and allowed Harris to step in. So an amazing little thing there. Just wanted to show you guys how powerful astrology is, how you can look at some of the timing of these events, make some predictions, and then see these things come to fruition in some form or another that follows that energy signature years later. All right. Well, I'm Matt Lawton, and this is the Astrological Winds channel, and this is a free video blog that I actually do every week. So if you have a YouTube account, please become a follower. Turn on your notifications. It's also available on podcasts. Just look up Astrological Winds channel. It's always posted on my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. And it's also available on Instagram, Astrological Winds channel. So please become a follower of the blog, and and let me know how you're feeling about it. And if you need any professional services, please check the website out, www.astrologicalwinds.com. Thank you all, and will be an interesting last political season to see, as we're going to watch that Pluto dip back into Capricorn eventually right during the election. So I think that's going to bring us probably similar results from the last time, and we will probably go back to seeing that power that Harris has. But that'll be another blog I'll talk about in the near future. All right, I'll see y'all soon.